Remember turn your Wi-Fi off on your phone, maybe.
Hello and welcome to Invictus Racing League. This is for the very last time on a Wednesday, 8 PM, or live on YouTube. This is round 12 out of 12, the F3 League, and apologise for the late start, a little bit of technical difficulties there. We hope we're all ready to go for the Monte Carlo last rounds of the season, and my name is Sam. For the last time for the season, I'm joined with me in the commentary box with my good friend Charlie. Charlie, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. As always, good to be here. Final round of the season. Still the constructors on the line, so it should be a good one.
Absolutely, saying, of course, Craig wrapping up the Drivers' Championship after a really good fight between himself and Luke Bailey all season long. But in the end, it just took him 11 rounds to wrap up that Drivers' Trophy. And of course, a massive congratulations to him, and then of course Luke as well for giving him such a great fight all season long. It's been great to watch him. But it's not all over and done with, as you say. The championship for the constructors is still up for grabs, with Alfa Romeo leading Renault by just 5 points. And of course, on the streets of Monaco, absolutely anything can happen. And I'm sure we're going to have a very chaotic and hopefully a very entertaining Grand Prix. We saw some great entertainment last week in the Silverstone circuit. And in terms of challenges, Charlie, you couldn't really ask for a more challenging circuit to finish up on. It's incredibly narrow around here.
Yeah, it is extremely tight around here, and as you say, very challenging. So concentration is going to be key tonight. Just keeping it out of the walls. It's so easy to pick up any wing damage here and maybe a puncture up against the wall, and this is going to make it even harder. Looking like full rain for this qualifying session. So yeah, that's definitely thrown a spanner in the works for some drivers.
Absolutely, I could imagine. Oh, well, I think we had something similar, didn't we, on the Monday night just over a week ago now, pouring rain, and I know my feeling, my stomach absolutely dropped, or my heart dropped into my stomach. It was a horrible sight looking out of the garage, seeing pouring rain around Monaco, probably the hardest circuit on the calendar, and these guys are going to have to negotiate it in pouring wet conditions. So these guys are going to have a real test on their hand. I can already hear someone revving up the engine. So it might be just all a case of trying to get out there, try and learn the track as much as they can. It's so easy to just clip the wall. See an Alfa Romeo and a Haas, look like the two Haas's in fact, just about ready to pop out of the garage, and they're going out on the intermediate tyre. So these guys are going to have a real test on their shoulders. And is it the best strategy, Charlie, to maybe try and get out there? We've got also 18-minute qualifying session. Is it a good tactic, perhaps go out as soon as you can, learn the track as much as you can in say 10 to 12 minutes, and then come in for a short blast at the end?
Yeah, I think track time out in these conditions is absolutely key. So you want to get out there and just feel where the grip is straight away, and just get as used to the conditions as you can, really, and yeah, just get as many laps in as you can. So I think being out there is the best bet, although it is tight around here with finding clear air to start your lap as well, so that'll be an extra challenge with the spray you have around here coming off the cars.
Absolutely, and of course now the two Hasses are the first two cars out on circuit. Behind them is a McLaren, or it might be F1 Richard, I think, and of course also just going through the Grand Hotel hairpin, and then of course into Portier here, and of course through the tunnel. There's so many iconic corners on this circuit, and you have to really you always have to string a perfect lap to get pole position around here anyway. But in the pouring rain, you have to string an even more perfect lap as Tinnis goes straight on. Might well be letting his teammate go through. In fact, he's stopping on the circuits. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe just wanting a bit more clean air, or maybe just having a quick look in his settings. But it looks like it's going to be Wojtek who might get the first flying lap about starting. In fact, all cars now all out on track, so they are all desperate to try and get just a little bit more in terms of experience of these wet conditions in Monaco. I would have thought not too many drivers would have been practicing Monaco in the rain, but nevertheless it's going to be a challenge for them. Of course, we'll have to wait and find out what it's like in the race, but Wojtek's going to get us started here. And of course Wojtek had a very good round in Silverstone last week, and of course came home P4, had a very good race, managed to didn't quite just fend off Craig. Craig also coming home P2, which was enough to claim the championship. But a good result for the Haas driver, and of course Tinnis as well was almost sliding already just up through the casino, but we've got a yellow flag. I think I might just want the Alfa Romeos getting out of the way. But we saw Craig taking home the championship last week, Charlie, and going into it as a champion. You've won it 1 week early. What are we going to see from him tonight? Is it going to be maximum concentration, finish the season as strong as he can, or do you reckon we might see Craig a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chilled, having a bit of fun tonight?
Well, as he said last week, he felt quite relieved. So hopefully that's a bit of pressure off his shoulders, and he'll be able to just go out there and relax and enjoy himself really. And you know, maybe he might perform even better with less pressure on. So I'm hoping we'll see another good result from Craig, and see if him and his teammate synchronously can challenge the Alfa Romeos for the title.
Absolutely, see what synchronously of course can do as well, and big pressure on qualifying. Of course, it's so difficult to overtake one, so you cannot afford to get qualifying wrong. And of course, that is one thing that perhaps goes into the favour of the Alfa Romeo boys. They've probably been a little bit better in terms of qualifying, particularly Simon Palmer. We know how good he can be in qualifying. So, but we'll see what these initial lap times are. Of course, they're only bankers, and Wojtek goes through for 26.1, which is immediately beaten by just over a second by Brennan's. So have a look, see, it looks like maybe Luke Bailey, who's invalidated his first lap, he did a 25.8, but of course that was invalidated, so that will not count. As just try and have a little look. I think we might have Sab about to cross the line for his first flying lap. Of course, just bankers, also just trying to get something on the board, trying not to invalidate. Sab goes P5 with JSP now going on to 24.0, so 8 tenths of a second faster. And of course, there'll be a lot of improvement for these guys as F1 Richard pops up into P3. And got a couple guys already in the pits, which maybe suggests to me maybe they've had a little bit of an incident somewhere, Charlie, and already maybe just damaging front wing. As Sab almost getting very close. I think one of the Haas is also in the wall there as well.
Yeah, it could suggest that. As we've said, it's so easy to pick up wing damage around here in the dry, so it's incredibly hard to keep it out the wall in the wet. So I'm sure you will see a lot of these guys, unfortunately, picking up some wing damage tonight.
See what Luke Bailey can do on, of course, on the intermediate tyres. Of course, in the tunnel it'll be absolutely bone dry, so that's obviously a little bit of an adjustment you'll have to make through there. But looks like Luke Bailey might just be coasting a little bit at this point, maybe just having a flying lap then a cool down lap, or might just put only enough fuel in for one lap as Gareth goes into P2. So he's still got a lot of time to find to the Mercedes of JSP, who I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it might have in one of the chats coming into this race that he was praying for rain tonight. It's Brennan's now, that's a 23.6, so the first man into the 1 minute 23s, and that'll give him a lot of confidence, I'm sure, as we'll just see what Nitrogas can do. He's still yet to set a flying lap, as Luke Bailey now does go into the pit lane, of course invalidating his first lap, maybe not quite having enough fuel for another lap. See what Nitrogas can do. That was a good day for the Red Bulls in the Silverstone Grand Prix. 1 week ago, Nitrogas did a fantastic race, started P10, finishing in P5. Did a really nice couple of overtakes as well. Had a very solid race and a really good pace, and his teammate Malc as well coming home inside the points in top 10. If it was a little bit luckier penalties, he might have even got, I think it's P9 or P8, but we'll see what we can do. Just coming around the last couple of corners, and see he's just about to come up to the line and goes up into P6, so respectable time there. But Brennan's the first man into the 23s, and it's quite a big gap between himself and then P3, as Gareth is just over a second slower.
Yeah, I think if we remember back to Germany earlier in the season, Brennan's was pretty decent in the dry, in the wet, sorry. So it could be a strength of his, and we're potentially seeing it play out again here today.
Absolutely, I remember him going fastest lap after fast lap. I think it's like 4 laps in a row he was doing something silly towards the end. So yeah, you're absolutely right to pick that up. He's very good in the rain in Germany, and certainly showing as he now comes into the pit lane maybe for a new change of tyres and maybe a bit of a refuel. But looks like Malc's going purple in that first sector, so Malc perhaps having a very good lap time. He's still yet to get one on the board. Both Alfa Romeos also yet to get one on the board. We'll see what Simon Palmer, how he's doing. He looks like he's just about to finish his first sector. So I think he's already had one trip to the pits. Might have been invalidating his lap time, not having fuel for another lap, or might have been damaged. We'll see how he does coming into the hairpin. You can see his teammate just a little bit further up down the road. I think his teammate's on an out lap, so surely he'll get out of the way for him. It's got quite a few guys coming to the pits, so maybe a few guys perhaps not perhaps going what something we're suggesting, not perhaps fueling the car for a few laps. It seems like quite a lot of people perhaps have the confidence to go out and try, you know, actual proper bangs eye flying laps, right? Low fueling the car quite lightly and trying to do the fastest times they can. Right now, Simon Palmer just overshoots and invalidates.
Yeah, maybe you're right, and people are just going out and doing singular laps and using up all the, I think maybe 2 or 3 sets of intermediates that they have. So we've been told it's going to be a dry race, so this is, fortunately for the drivers, going to clear up this weather. But yeah, they obviously feel confident enough to just go out there and do those singular laps. Otherwise, there would be fuel in the car and doing a few more.
Absolutely. So Malc picks up into the 24.9, so a very respectable lap time there from the Red Bull driver. He goes up into P5, just pipping his teammate, in fact, who are going right on board with Luke Bailey, of course, number 2 in the championship, and he is guaranteed to finish in second place in the championship regardless of results tonight. Sadly, no Drazio, who is currently our P3 man, so a good result for Simon Palmer could move him into third place in the championship tonight. Shame we couldn't see Drazio tonight. You couldn't see him last week either, sadly, because he's we know how quick he can be on his day. Obviously picked up a couple of race wins this season, but looking like he's having a tidy lap. He's gone purple in that first sector. Just going to try and keep it tidy. Of course, got McLaren just further in front of him as he comes through the tunnel, trying not to get too distracted. As they now come out of the tunnel, you see Brennan's getting out the way quite sensibly. He doesn't want to overshoot it like his teammates. Just cut it just about perfectly. Of course, you can cut it, try and straight line it just that little bit to give you a little bit of a better exit. But you can quite easily invalidate around there as you goes through to back and in the swimming pool. And of course, coming now into turns 15 and 16. Trying to get on the powers, it's such difficult traction, and you would really slow it down for Raskas, of course, and then a quick burst of throttle into the last corner. Still yet to set a time. In fact, both Alfa Romeo yet to set a time. Synchronizzi sat in P3, so he's had a very good flying lap. See what Luke Bailey can do is a 25 flat, which puts him P6, just ahead of Craig and Nitrogas. So it's a good, respectable time from him. He's going to hope his teammate also follows suit with a 25.4. So the Alfa Romeos do finally get a lap time on the board, but Synchronizzi, surprisingly, out of the 2 Alfa Romeos and 2 Renaults, he is the leading car at that little pack.
Yeah, that's crucial, really, isn't it, for Renault? They need to outscore Alfa Romeo by 6 points, I believe, to take this constructors' title away. So, yeah, a good lap by Synchronizzi, and he'll be feeling confident that he's put himself ahead of those 2 Alphas, and he'll be wanting to help his teammate Craig get up ahead of him. As we know, track position is absolutely vital here.
And Tinner's just getting it all wrong through the swimming pool, just smashing off his front wing there. Surely a bit of frustration. Of course, we saw him take an unbelievable pole position, to all his credit, in Silverstone. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to just make that happen again tonight. Well, he's going to have to pit for a new front wing. If he is, going to have to pull a rabbit out of the hat now. But we'll see what O'Stephen can do. And he's going a little bit quicker in that second sector, so we can see what he does. He just comes past swimming pool now, and of course try and get the power down best he can, try and open up Raskas, and to see the Haas there of Tinners coming into the pit lane, change of front wing. 7 minutes on the clock as they come around the last corner. Now the Williams driver currently sat in P13 on the 26.5, taking the shortest route to the line, almost going into the back of Sab as he comes out the pit lane there. It does improve by about 3/10 of a second, I believe, but it doesn't improve his position.
Just on board with Craig, he overshot the hairpin at the end of sector 1, where we famously saw Nico Rosberg park his car in 2014. Looking like Craig was pushing a bit too hard and just went down that little escape road and had to wait for a couple of cars to come past. So Craig back into the pits now.
As now F1 Richard gets himself back up a little bit, and 24.8, and the McLarens are really enjoying this wet weather at Monaco. Brennan's still fastest man by just 0.4 of a second. We know JSP is on a lap, and he is going purple in that first sector, so improving by 1/10.5, which is a lot of time to find in that first sector. Can he keep it nice and tidy through the hairpin? He's kept a really nice line. Can he just try and squirt the power through these 2 right-handers? Of course, you just want to come so close to that wall, try and open up this, because you want to get a good exit, because in terms of straight lines, in terms of top speed around Monaco, this is pretty much it. And it's going to come around the tunnel now. He's going to try and pick his braking point for the Nouvelle chicane. Want to try and straight line it a little bit, just hops over the curve, doesn't invalidate, so it looks like he's got it pretty nicely, trying to get on the power best he can as he comes into the back. It might have even just clipped the wall there on the outside. Not a great camera angle, so going right on the board. He's going 0.4 faster as he now come through swimming pool, so he's going to have to try and keep it nice and tidy through this last sector. The Mercedes driver clearly favouring these conditions. So we're going to come around Raskas, blocking up the front left, then the front right. He's on the absolute edge of grip. You can see how much he's struggling, but he's clearly very quick. This is now going to plant the throttle, trying to gun it to the line as Luke Bailey shot up into P2, but JSP goes P1 with a 23.5, so now 3 drivers in the 23s. Luke Bailey setting another good lap on the 23.8, which did pin provisionally second place, as I think F1 Richard has improved again. So again, the McLaren's looking really well. I think Brennan's is on another lap, he's going slightly quicker, but a fabulous lap there from JSP.
Yeah, F1 Richard, was just on another lap. He came across the line and did a 24.6, which popped himself up into 4th. So Yeah, as you say, both McLarens looking very strong around here, and in these conditions particularly. But as you say, the race is going to be dry, so it could all change come the race. But they're looking good at the moment.
See what Brennan's can do in his McLaren coming around the last couple of corners. He's on a 23.6. Can he improve on it? He's going to have to find about a tenth of a second, and he does. He finds nearly 2/10 of a second, so he goes again provisional pole. So it's a fabulous bit of battling of cat and mouse between the McLaren driver and the Mercedes driver for P1 of the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. Will they come in? They might come in again, have one more burst attempt of getting pole position before the end of the session. Luke Bailey's getting quicker and quicker as well. He comes into the pit lane as well. So F1 Richards invalidated this lap, so he might just be backing off coming into the pits lane. We'll go further down the order. We'll see what Simon Palmer. It looks like he's struggling just a little bit at 25.4, so he's got quite a lot of time to find. He's going to have to find 2 seconds if he wants to get himself on pole position right now. 2 Red Bulls still staying quite pretty in 7th and 8th. Malc still on a very good lap time of a 24.8, so quite a big gap there between 8th place of Nitrogas and P9 of Simon Palmer. We'll see what the 2 Haas boys can do. They've currently got Wojtek in P12 and Tinnis in P14. We know these guys are really good in qualifying when they nail it. We saw that in Silverstone, of course, P1 and P3. And after the first sector of the first lap, they was running first and second. They didn't quite finish like that. Sadly, Tinnis, I'm sure, a little bit disappointed. He couldn't quite convert, but it was a good race for Wojtek, I suppose, in the end, and he picked up some valuable points for him when he's threatened to do that many a times this season, as Tinnis now just coming up to back, and of course coming up to the swimming pool. Now he's going to have to find quite a lot of time. Wants to boost himself up the order. He's going 1.8 seconds quicker in that middle sector, so he's clearly feeling a lot more confident with the car. Just going to try and come around the last couple of corners now through Raskas. It's got a pretty nice line. He's just clipped the inside wall, just sort of losing the rear. He's going to continue the lap anyway. He's got just over, well, about 3 minutes left in the session, but he's going to squirt the throttle down, come to the start-finish line. That does improve him. I think it moves him up a place, moves him ahead of O'Stephen just about, but a costly mistake there for the Haas driver.
Yeah, it was a costly mistake. I'm just riding on board with Synchronously, who's on a lap coming through end of sector 2 now. He's 2 tenths up currently, so that would pop him up a place, but not enough to get into those 23s at the moment. Just the second to last corner, the final corner to negotiate. Oh no, he's going to dive into the pits, so he's bailed out on that. It clearly didn't feel that that was good enough to move him up sufficiently. And
Wojtek's gone massively quicker then, so he's going to go on into, he's become the 4th man into the 1 minute 23. He's getting himself up into P4, which is far more what we were expecting from the Haas drivers. So we'll see what Tinnis can do. I'm sure he'll come back into the pits and try and go a little bit quicker. But what can Benoist do? He's on another lap, 2 minutes left in the session. If he's got enough fuel in the car, and probably got enough battery left, I'm sure he could go for another lap after this one, should he feel he needs it. Looks like Wojtek's had an incident with Sab somewhere. I don't know if you spotted that. He's got a 5-place grid penalty, which when you're sat in P4 is an absolute disaster to happen to him, as Brennan's improves by 4 tenths of a second. A fantastic lap to go pole position, provisional pole by half a second. That's a real battle for JSP and Luke Bailey to really fight now.
Yeah, Brennan's is absolutely flying, isn't he? I'm just looking at Sab. Sab's got no end plates on his front wing, so something has happened along the line somewhere. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but as Craig just retired from the session, so Craig couldn't get back out of the pits in time, so that's him stuck down in P11. That's really big for Craig. He needs to. He's got a lot of work to do during the race if he wants to try and help his team secure that constructors title.
Synchronously as well, so both Renaults not getting enough time for another flying lap, as Sab also now retiring from the session, and Tinnis also following suit. I think getting very close to that outside wall. So this is sort of an open goal for the Alfa Romeo drivers. It's like Simon Palmer's backing off. I think he's also trying to follow JSP, who's going a little bit quicker in this first sector. It's going to be an incredible shootout between himself and Luke Bailey. Will someone else also try and get it? It's quite a big gap between the top 4 compared to the rest of the grid, particularly there behind Simon Palmer. Half a second behind him is F1 Richard, as Wojtek now retires, as Brennan says, in the pit lane. So it is now all down to JSP and the likes of Luke Bailey. And Luke Bailey is going to cross the line before Mercedes driver comes around to back and into swimming pool, maybe just losing a little bit on exit. He's improving, but only by about half a tenth, so he's going to have to absolutely nail this last sector if he wants pole position to be his. But it doesn't necessarily need pole position. This JSP is now going 4 tenths a second quicker in that middle sector. This is going to be so close for pole position. Brennan, I'm sure, will be biting his nails watching the Mercedes driver, as he knows just how quick he's probably going. He's going to come around the last corner now. Does Luke Bailey improve? I think he might have done. It hasn't improved his position at least, but the Mercedes driver is going to come across the line, and he's found 8 tenths of a second, nearly 9 tenths of a second to go provisional pole. Well, effectively pole position with a 22.6, and a stunning lap by the Mercedes driver. I don't think we'll see anyone beat that. F1 Richard currently sat in P6, so good return to qualifying form for him. But it does improve by 10th, but it doesn't improve his position. I can't see anyone beating that one though, Charlie.
No, I don't see anyone out on the circuit who's going that much quicker at the moment. That was a cracking lap by JSP. That's really is a special lap, and he's just blown everyone away with that. Even Brannons, who was already looking mightily fast. So yeah, a great lap from JSP, and it really is rewarding round here if you get pole position, because everyone knows it's such a hard track to nail.
Absolutely. Stephen there just come across the line in P12 and just saw Nitrograss. He was going a lot quicker. It looks like he was even going purple in that middle sector. He's 8 tenths of a second up, which would have been about the 24.0 mark, which could have been good enough for a top 5 position, but just getting it all wrong around turns 15 and 16. We saw him facing the wrong way, and minus a front wing end plate as well. Looks like Luke Bailey he's on the lap, but he's invalidated. Okay, so that is our starting order, and looks like the wet weather masters perhaps in JSP and Brennons. We know how good Brennons is in the rain, and JSP, of course, getting the win somewhat incredibly in Singapore, and of course, fresh off that, he had a bit more of a challenging British Grand Prix for him, but he seems red hot in form for the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. Of course, the last round of the season, he will start from pole position. Brennons in the pouring rain did a fantastic qualifying. Looked like for all the world he was going to be on pole when he went provisional pole by 4 tenths of a second with just a couple of minutes remaining. But JSP coming into the last sector was about nip and tuck with the McLaren drive, but he must have had a sensational last sector to find another 4 tenths of a second. So congratulations to the pair of them, but JSP will start from pole position. Luke Bailey who's starting P3, he knows that's more than good enough, especially with his teammate in P5 when you see Synchronously and Craig in P7 and P11. So it certainly favours in the Alfa Romeo camp. Wojtek will start P4, but with a 5-place grid penalty, so we could see him down in 9th place. Evan Richard, I'm sure, will be happy with a P6. Synchronously in 7th. Gareth will start from P8. A good qualifying lap means Malc has out-qualified his team at Nitro. Starts P10 for the second race in a row. Craig in P11. Stephen Sab are 12th and 13th. Tinnis in 14th, and Sir Spud will start plumb last. But we know how crucial qualifying can be around Monaco, but we know how also, particularly in league racing, how unpredictable it can be. So even though overtaking is quite tricky around here, Charlie, I think it would be wrong to assume that because you start in pole position you'd win, because we know how unpredictable it is.
Yeah, it can be completely unpredictable, and like we've seen at a couple of the other street circuits on this game, safety cars play a massive role in strategy. So yeah, you can't always bank on having pole position getting you the win round here, but saying that, it is extremely difficult to overtake. If you haven't got a massive pace advantage on the car in front, then you really are going to struggle to get by, because there's just not a lot of places to get past around here. But it's doable if people try hard enough and push the car in front into a mistake. It is more than doable, but very difficult.
And I'm sure Brennon's been licking his lips starting P2, because we know how well he goes, particularly in the race. His qualifying has been perhaps the one area of improvement for him next season. He's always been very good in the race, and of course free tyre choice for everyone. It's not just for those outside the top 10. Obviously the wet qualifying session means you're free to start on whatever tyre you wish. So it'll be interesting to see what do particularly the front runners go on. Do they start on the soft tyres and try and push their way through and try and create a little bit of gap, or do they go long on the medium tyres? So it'd be interesting to see. Could see quite a lot of split strategies around here. And of course, go back to the constructors table. Alfa Romeo leads Renault by 5 points, so we need Renault to outscore the Alphas by 6 points this evening if they want to crown the championship. It'll be, of course, be a double for Craig, and while Luke Bailey, I'm sure he'd be very pleased. At least he hasn't got the Drivers' Championship, but if he was to win a constructors, I'm sure that'd be bittersweet and to an end of a very good season for him. And in terms of third place from the constructors, it's pretty much wide open. We've got quite a few teams. We've got McLaren currently sat on 77 points. Teo Rosso of Jojo and Cryptox sadly not with us, on 75, so I won't be seeing them. Mercedes are just on 69 points, so a good result for JSP could potentially mean the difference between Mercedes finishing 5th and all the way up to 3rd, and Williams as well on 69 points. So we're needing to see a good result from Gareth, and obviously I know Stephen fight back and at Red Bull a further 17 points behind on 52. So we could see a little bit of tossing and changing between that, but of course all eyes on the Constructors' Championship battle between Alfa Romeo and Renault. Renault know that going into this run they've got a little bit of work to do, and their work's got that a little bit harder through not a great qualifying session for the pair. But of course, as you say, it's going to be a very long race, and of course it looks like, Charlie, it looks like a lot of these front runners are going to go on medium tyres.
Yeah, I think that's probably sensible. You can do soft medium around here, but if you've got the choice, why not just use the more durable tyre? Like we said, it's extremely hard to overtake, and you're not really going to come under threat from many people on the soft. So yeah, I think it's a sensible choice from all those guys that are running that.
And of course, with that 5th place grid penalty for Wojtek, promotes Simon Palmer up to P4. So the Alfa Romeo is locking out the second row, and if they're sensible, if they play the cards right, they know they're in such a good position. But interestingly, they've gone onto the soft tyres, and that could be a masterstroke, or that could be a real because you would think, should they struggle to perhaps pass the two cars in front on the medium tyres, if they can't quite use those soft tyres to their full effect, they could be backed essentially into the likes of F1 Richard and Synchronusely. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because obviously Alfa Romeo, I know they don't have to be too aggressive, but they might have to be a little bit aggressive to make this strategy work, because the starting the soft tyres is quite an out there call, you'd think.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit of a bold call, because everyone on the medium is obviously going to be able to go further with the possibility of there being a safety car for their pit stop. So the softer guys will have to pit around lap 10, and they're pretty much locked into that. Or it could be around lap 12 actually, because they're starting on brand new tyres, but they're pretty much locked into that. So if there's a safety car after that, they could find themselves losing out.
And of course, just outside the top 10, we've got Craig O'Stephen. O'Stephen starting on the hard tyre, so I'd expect him to go very, very long into this race, possibly even pitting on the last lap. Like, hard tyres are very, very durable around here. We are expecting most drivers to do soft medium or vice versa. And of course, behind him is Tennis, who equally only the 4th driver to start on the soft tyre, so he's getting a little bit aggressive from 14th on the grid. And Sir Spud is Sir Spud, we know quite often favours the alternate strategy. He's going medium, probably to soft. But no heroics into Santavot, as we see the 3, now 4, now 5 red lights, and for the last time in season 10 we have lights out. And who's going to be a good start? Looks like one of the Hasses there. Haven't got a great camera view of it. We'll see what is going on. It looks like Brenner's getting attacked by Luke Bailey. Luke Bailey has got into P2. Simon Palmer's into P4. We've got F1 Richard looking like he's going to hold out in P5. Synchronicity holds on to P6. Looks like Gareth has got to jump into P7. Craig still sat into P11. Sab's got past O'Stephen on those hard tyres, but it's been a very good start for Luke Bailey. It's looking like, it's just JSP just locking up a little bit as we go into the hairpin. Will we see any moves in here? Looks like one of the Red Bulls looking like a real sniffer at the back, seeing a front wing come off someone. Might be one of the McLarens perhaps. They've all been quite well behaved, as Wojtek potentially having disconnection problems or something. I'm not sure about that. He's still in P10 as it shows, but Luke Bailey up into P2.
Yeah, cracking start from Luke. He just stuck to the gearbox of JSP going into turn 1 and held the inside line, took the line coming out of the corner and got ahead of Brennan. So that's a good move from Luke Bailey, because now he can just crack on to the leader and apply pressure to JSP if he has the pace. But so far JSP looking pretty comfortable on those medium tyres.
Yep, certainly not phased, as McLaren and Brennan's just having a little sniff at Raskas, maybe just getting in the mirrors of Alfa Romeo drives. And of course there are our movers on the first grid. Looks like Nitrogas has got the job done on Wojtek, and Sab getting the job done on the Williams. As now looks like Craig has also got the job done on Wojtek, because I don't think Wojtek has rejoined the session just yet, so it might be an easier move for the Renault driver. But what can Luke Bailey do is, on those softer tyres, he's going to have to try and make the most of them. And the best way to do that is try and get past the Mercedes, going to take in a wide line just at the top of the hill there around Casino in turn 4. And they're all going to be so close. And of course the hairpin, if you're very, very brave and don't feel like you've got too much to lose, you could potentially throw it down the inside. You have got to have a very cooperative opponent if you are going to try that. But it looks like a little bit of a breakaway for the top 3. Wondering Simon Palmer might even have some damage. If on Richard also 2.5 seconds back. He is on those medium tyres, of course. But looks like the top 3 looking very comfortable, with JSP not giving in to the pressure, and he knows that if it can just hold Luke Bailey behind, he knows the medium tyres will come back to him. And at the moment, Luke Bailey's tyres get so close to the wall. If Luke Bailey's tyres do overheat and do grain a little bit, JSP could be in a very good position.
Yeah, unfortunately, Simon Palmer, as we've said so many times this season,
Oh,
has picked up
JSP
wing
spun
damage.
at Raskas. He's hit the inside of the wall and he's facing the wrong way. He's facing a barrier, and I probably think he's going to have a long wait unless he's been. Oh, he's got himself back going, but I think he's got himself back going. And I think one of the McLarens has gone into him while he was returning to the circuit, because I see F1 Richard going into the pit lane and a damaged front wing everywhere. I can also see one of the Renaults of Synchronously now into the pit lane as well. So disaster for the Renault driver as well. They've both gone onto the hard tyres. I don't know what happened. They just clipped the inside wall and spun across the track facing the wrong way. I don't think he could really do too much. I think the McLaren probably didn't even see him. I just went straight in, but of course that's ruined their races as well. Of F1 Richard and Synchronously, they've gone onto the hard tyres in the pit lane, probably going straight to the end. But it's a disaster for JSP.
That is disaster, because he looked pretty comfortable out there on that first lap, but obviously Luke Bailey started pressuring him and maybe just took the slight wrong line and just clipped that inside barrier, and as we've seen in real life, it can just send you straight round. So yeah, I think it was him who was F1 Richard who went in the back of JSP as he came around that corner, which was just unfortunate. But JSP's back up and running, and he is only 5 seconds off of Simon Palmer, who does have that wing damage. So it's not the end of the world for JSP just yet. Well, that incident has certainly worked wonders for the likes of Sab and Stephen. They're now currently running into the points as Luke Bailey now sets a fast lap race of 14.2. He's extending that lead. Of course, he's on the soft tyres. He wants to make the most of them. It's looking all too easy for Alfa Romeo right now on the streets of Monte Carlo. And Malc's looking really racy in P6. He's all over the gearbox. All the winners drivers just like Gareth getting super close to the wall and exit at turn 1. I think he might just have got away with it as they come now to the top of the hill. And Malc's looking so strong in these early phases of the race. Craig's also got himself up into P8. A couple of positions for him, making the most of errors from other people. As we now come down around into turn 5 and into the hairpin, and it looks like Gareth is still just keeping it within. Craig almost pushing Marchagas around the hairpin as Malc just dropping off a little bit, and I'm going to come under a little bit of pressure from his teammate. I was right on board with Malc then, and the reason he dropped back a little bit is he actually slipped his car into neutral just as he was about to come out and exit into the tunnel, so that obviously didn't help him. He's lost about half a second because of that. Yeah, easily done. And looks like Wojtek it's currently dropped down into P12. I haven't seen him rejoin, so I think that's the reason why he's dropped so many positions. Tinnis is now up into P11 on those soft tyres, tucked up right on the gearbox of Stephen, who's a few seconds behind Sab. So Sab's having a very good opening 5 laps, and of course if we can keep it out the wall, keep it sort of penalty free, could be on for even more positions here, who knows. But Luke Bailey extending his advantage to 2 seconds right now, but it's been pretty well behaved, other than of course the unfortunate incident of JSP, who looks like he's beginning to try and wind the gap back in on Simon Palmer. Of course Simon Palmer on those soft tyres, but we do believe has damage, who's 2.5 seconds further back from the McLaren of Brennan's. And the 2 Red Bulls continuing to stalk Gareth, and Gareth of course 2.5 seconds behind. I can't see any damage on his front wing, but it looks like he's struggling a little bit to keep up with the Mercedes. Yeah, Gareth is struggling. JSP's already got that gap down by 2 seconds in 2 laps to the Alfa Romeo of Simon Palmer, so obviously that wing damage, wherever Simon picked that up on that opening lap, it's really hindering him, and JSP is closing in, so JSP will have a chance to get back on that podium where he feels he should rightly be after that brilliant qualifying. So I'm just seeing the pictures there of Gareth's car. He has actually got wing damage on that front left end plate, so you can see why he's just understeering massively through some of these corners, and why Malc is looking just so much more confident in these early phases. Of course he's got a full front wing and he's trying to make the absolute maximum of it, but of course the overtaking opportunities in Monte Carlo are fine and hard to come by. Of course DRS down this home straight, but it won't really give you too much, if anything. Of course by the time you do begin to gain in that slipstream, you're back on the brakes for turn 1. Of course back up the hill as well, it's quite tight and twisty. No real chances for an overtake round here unless you're willing on a mistake of the driver in front, but Gareth is doing just about what he needs to. He is falling just over 3 seconds behind now, but he's doing what he needs to keep the 2 Red Bulls behind. The Red Bulls looking really nice and comfortable in the 6th and 7th. As we're saying, there is an opportunity for Red Bull to move a little bit up in the constructors with a good result tonight, and of course a difficult race for those cars in front of them. As F1 Richard and Synchronously on the hard tyres trying to make a little bit of progress. They're 14th and 15th. F1 Richard still 14 seconds behind Wojtek. So these guys have just got to try and get their head down. Of course, incident nothing to do with them, or not of any of their fault, but they've just got to try and get their head down now, you'd imagine, and just try and put in some good laps. Yeah, they've just got to, as you say, get their head down and get to that pit stop phase, because if they try and just pit now because they're tired of having no downforce, they're only going to lose more time. So they've just got to get to that pit stop phase, which, I mean, if they want to, they can bin these mediums off at around lap 10, 12 and stick a set of hards on, which will take them quite easily to the end. But yeah, JSP still closing in on Simon Palmer, and Brennon's actually just started to close in on Luke Bailey, so maybe those medium tyres are just coming into play for Brennon's, and he's just closing up to the back of the Alpha.
It might well be the turning point of this race, when the mediums suddenly become that little bit better than those soft tyres on the Alfa Romeo. Of course, who's saying Luke Bailey knows he doesn't have to win this race really to win the Constructors' Championship. He just knows him and his team have just got to finish pretty well and ahead of the Renaults, and obviously Synchronicity currently down in plumb last, and Craig down in P8 struggling to make progress with a couple of Red Bulls in front of him. So but yeah, Brennon's bringing the gap down to a seconds as we're going right aboard JSP, who's now half a second behind Simon Palmer already. So Simon Palmer must have quite a lot of damage. He's now 7 seconds behind the McLaren of Brennon, so he's really struggling. You'd think he'd be struggling even more if unless Luke Bailey has picked up damage, because also we know the soft tyres can overheat quite quickly, and of course they do wear, but we'll just have to see. Of course you can pick up damage from anywhere. We'll just have to see if Brennon, if JSP does try and move on the Alfa Romeo driver at any point. Of course he will be going quite a bit further into this Grand Prix than the Alfa Romeo driver. You'd expect to see the Alphas in the pits fairly soon, as we've already seen Tennis coming into the pit lane. He's gone on for a set of hard tyres, so he's now dropped down into P15, so maybe just picking up a little bit of damage there. As Sab sitting in P9, seemingly on a race on his own there. You see on the minimap on the right hand side, going through turn 1. It's got quite a distance between the car ahead and behind him, but I'm sure he won't mind as long as he's in the points. And looks like Malc still shadowing every move of the Williams of Gareth.
Yeah, Malc still struggling to put a move on the Williams, who is seemingly getting slower and slower as Nitrogas runs into the back of his teammate as they all concertinaed around that hairpin. I'm not sure if Nitro picked up any damage there. I think he did. I think he's lost an end plate, unfortunately, so he's going to find himself struggling for downforce now, with the champion, the current champion, Craig, all over the back of him.
Simon Palmer picks up a 3-second time penalty. It's so easy to do. We've already seen Malc pick up one. Of course, penalties there really cost Malc in Silverstone. He had a good result anyway, picking up a P10 and a championship point, but of course would have been a little bit more without penalties. And you can see, yeah, just on the front left end plate of that Red Bull Nitrogas, and he's going to struggle a little bit. It looks like Simon Palmer does come into the pit, and Malc all the way over the back of that Williams, as Reynolds is just half a second behind Luke Bailey, so he's really pulled the gap back down as Wojtek does finally rejoin, and I'm sure it won't be at all pleased to see him all the way back down into P11. There's another position for Sab, at least we'll have to see where Simon Palmer comes out. Of course, did pick up a 3-second time penalty. We'll see if Malc can make a move on Gareth, and of course will the damaged front wing of Nitrogas make him vulnerable to the Renault of Craig. He's looking a little bit more irritated, just trying to hustle and hurry the Red Bull driver, just trying to get in the mirrors a little bit, but it's just so tight. You've got to be so careful with a move, and of course you're always going to need a reliable opponent to try it on. It takes incredible racecraft to try and pull a move off round here without contact, and of course contact can so easily result in a damaged front wing, which around here will cost you a lot of time. But Brennon's sticking quite nicely on the back of Luke Bailey now. It'll be interesting to see, does Luke Bailey pit on the end of the lap, because it looks like his medium tyres potentially could be very quickly disintegrated. No, it's going on another lap, so he's clearly got enough grip left.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Simon has chosen the medium tyres, as Sir Spud just takes control of his car again as Simon approaches the back of the Ghost. So Simon's now got to get past the Spud, which he does so pretty quickly as the Spud goes deep into the chicane. But yeah, it's interesting to see that Simon has chosen them, because he's obviously confident that he will go to the end from here. So they will wear out come the end, but they can go there. So he's now got a lot of work to do to regain that time he lost with that broken front wing.
Absolutely, just coming through the casino now, and of course back down the hill into turns 5, and Red Bull of Malc, of course, in his natural habitat right behind that Williams rear wing, going late on the brakes. And of course Nitrogas just getting very close, and of course Craig getting super close to the back of the Red Bull as well. Just want to try and plant the fault as best he can. In terms of overtaking, it is very difficult, as we all know. A late braking manoeuvre down the inside out of the tunnel into the Nouvelle chicane is a very possible overtaking opportunity. Looks like Simon Palmer and Wojtek as no, Simon Palmer just overtaking the ghost car of the Haas drivers. Mount Cooking increasingly closer to the back of that Williams driver as Luke Bailey does come into the pits. And now crucially for him, where's he going to feed out? Because you do get that little bit of telemetry from your engineer on your right hand side on your MFD, which gives you a rough estimate as to where you are going to come out. Has he played a really nice move here? Because he's going to be hoping for the love of God that it doesn't come out behind this little train of a Williams and 2 Red Bulls, and that's exactly where it's going to feed out. So this could immediately swing into the advantage of Reynolds, who's Luke Bailey's going to come out right behind his championship rival of Craig. And I mean, if I was to say, Charlie, I would say pretty comfortably a pretty solid bet that is the worst place Luke Bailey could have possibly have come out there.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Brennan's fans in the league, in the stream chat tonight, and I think one of them needs to get onto him and tell him where Luke's come out and just pump some laps in now and get into the pits, because Luke is going to be absolutely stuck here for, it could be a long time, it could be another 20 laps for all we know, unless he can pick his way through them.
That's the thing, he's got 4 cars to negotiate, and of course these guys on the mediums are going to be going plenty of laps yet, and you'd think the 10 lap hold mediums, you'd think they still have reasonable tyre life in them to at least defend off or not be super slow, that he wouldn't have an advantage. And of course Simon Palmer as well, he's coming up to the back of Stevens, so it looks like JSP also could be in a really good position to reclaim 3rd position in this race. And it's Craig getting a super run out of turns 14 and 15 and 16. It almost has to go on the brakes. He just couldn't go anywhere with that speed. Nutchgas with that damaged front wing, as just kissing almost the entry inside barrier there on that last corner. But looks like Craig is going to follow the Red Bull through. It's not just seems to get it all wrong into turn 1. Craig almost pushing the Red Bull up the hill, and they're going to go into Massenet at the top of the hill. It looks like the Red Bull's going to hold on just about, but Nigel Gas is increasingly struggling, just going a little bit all over the road, but he's holding his position well. He's just about holding up with his teammate, but you've got to feel that this front wing damage is going to have such a big when you pick up front wing damage, it's not just your own race, it's the drivers behind who just increasingly frustrate.
Yeah, he will be frustrated behind these cars, as it's just, there's going to be no way past around here. So this really has played into the hands of Brennan's, and his little his fans in the chat have said they've informed him. So he's going to be pushing on to get some good laps in and hopefully pit onto those hard tyres.
Brennan's chief engineer has informed him, so he's got the highest ranking to make sure he's got the message. Put your head down, because you're in a very good position that when you make your pit stop that you'll regain the lead. As got a yellow flag in sector 2. I think that's Simon Palmer. He's got corner cutting, so I'm not sure what's going wrong for him. It looks like it's coming out the tunnel into the Nouvelle chicane. Looks like he's got it all wrong. I can't begin to describe possibly where, because he's also he's got a little bit of gap now. He's going to catch up to the Williams of Stephen, you would imagine, which he will need to negotiate pretty quickly if he wants to hold on to position ahead of JSP. But making mistakes like that isn't going to help him. If he's already got a 3-second time penalty with 5 seconds on top of that, it's looking like it could be the end of a podium for Simon Palmer tonight. But it's a very long race, as Wojtek does come into the pits. He's put on a set of medium tyres, and a gap between Brennan's and JSP just hovering about 7.2, 7.3 seconds. So it's looking quite comfortable for the top 2 right now, and of course they'll be looking behind. I couldn't believe in their luck that this little train that Gareth is doing for them, holding up the 2 Red Bulls, Craig, and our previous race leader of Luke Bailey. Of course, with the damaged front wing, this Williams driver, so he can't really do too much about the cars in front. All he can do is focus on his own race. So Craig spun it.
Craig just clipped the barrier coming out the chicane, and he's just gone round. That's so unfortunate, and Sab will be licking his lips, as that will promote him another place up into P7. But that's good for Luke Bailey, because now he can just get onto the 2 Red Bulls, and he hasn't got to negotiate the champion. As Nitro's hit the wall in the penultimate corner, and Nitro's just dived straight into the pits as Craig's disqualified from the session.
Yeah, it's disqualified for the session for going the wrong way around the Monte Carlo Grand Prix circuit, and when he spun, of course, I think he was trying to get out of the way of Sab quite kindly by trying to sort of half donut, but half go into the runoff area, of course, at the Nouvelle chicane, to try and get out of the way and return it there. But again, for some reason, didn't seem to like that, and it's disqualified him from the session. So our newly crowned champion, I'm sure he is very relieved that it was over last week, is now out of the Monte Carlo Grand Prix, our first, not non-finisher of the race on lap 14. So a real shame there for the Renault driver, and of course it's now all down to Synchronousi, and the championship of constructors is looking like a real long shot now for Renault, with only one car left, and Synchronousi currently outside the points, with Luke Bailey and Simon Palmer firmly in the point standings, as Simon Palmer is now right on the back of Stephen. It's taken him quite a few laps to get onto the back of that Williams, but such a shame there for Craig. And Sab is now sat in P6, and we were saying to him earlier, you know, just try and keep it clean, try and keep penalty free. You could find yourself well inside the points. You still get to make a pit stop, of course, but this is going perfectly for the Racing Point driver.
Yeah, as you say that, he's just clipped the wall and lost an end plate, so you've just you've cursed him there, and he's lost both of his end plates. So I imagine he'll be in as he rounds the penultimate corner. No, he stays out. He's still going. So sticking to whatever strategy he's on and going with it. But that is potentially why he's dropping back so far. But in terms of Brennan's now, I think he's got a gap for a pit stop over third place man Captain Stiff. I think if he wanted to pit now and just go onto the hards, I think he could retain position and effectively come out as net leader. So yeah, Captain Stiff is just dropping further and further back, and obviously with Luke being behind them, Brennan's is really in pole position here for the win.
Is Nigel Gas getting so impatient behind the McLaren of F1
no.
Richard, and they're just, oh my goodness, pushing them around the top of the casino. And I think Nigel Gas has got a damaged front wing again. In fact, he's missing the entire end plate on that left hand side. He's going to surely have to pit for a new front wing. He's getting so impatient behind the McLaren, and McLaren of course on used hard tyres was absolutely struggling so much, and Nigel Gas was practically pushing him up the hill and then pushing him around casino for good measure. And Simon Palmer's had an incident somewhere as well, because he's got a now completely ruined front wing on that left hand side, the end plate completely missing. So surely that's another pit stop for him. He's going to be losing a massive amount of time. Clearly an overtaking opportunity on the Williams hasn't gone according to plan for him. But such a shame for Nigel Gas. The Red Bull's looking so good, and of course going onto the soft tyres, you'd imagine pitting onto the soft tyres, he would have to pit again anyway. You think he would really struggle to get them to the end, potentially just hoping and praying for safety cars. Luke Bailey's all over the back of the Red Bull. Malc and Malc continually all over the back of Gareth. Gareth's have to relieve outstanding pressure, as looks like we've got Spider, I think, retiring from the session. I think he might, just looking at his car, I think he might well be lost it in the tunnel or something somewhere, as Simon Palmer has come into the
safety
pit.
car.
Oh, we have. There's Simon Palmer
and
a
safety car out. So Spaders obviously lost it in the tunnel somewhere, and now this is going to play massively into the hands of Brennan's. If I was him, I would be straight into the pits, at which he is, assuming for the hard tyre, so he can just go to the end now. This is a massive development. JSP as well is going to be able to claw back the positions that he lost earlier, I assume.
It's looking very likely. We'll see where Luke Bailey is. He's only coming around swimming pool, so these top two are going to maintain their position as the top two, and we'll see what these guys on the medium strategy of Gareth and Malc, see what these guys do. Looks like they're probably going to follow suit. Luke Bailey goes through, which will be into P3. Do these guys go onto the hard tyres as well? It's going to be the hard tyres for Malc. What does Gareth put on? Of course, he's got the last pit lane. A little bit of a pit lane battle between the Williams team and the Red Bull team. It looks like Malc could get a jump here on Gareth, because Gareth's opted for a front wing change, so he's clearly had enough of that front wing lack of downforce costing him enough time, but he has maintained his position ahead of Malc, so maybe a change of front wing for Malc as well. But these guys are going to come out 4th and 5th, so quite nicely suited for them. O'Stevens in the pit lane having a very slow stop because of his teammates all recently been in, as Sab's going to come flying past him down the pit lane, and he's going to come out probably about P7. O'Stevens still in the box as he finally gets released. We'll try and see where everyone else is performing out. Looks like Vortex Ghost's car is going to come up just behind Sab, who's Sab is now at P7. What a fabulous start to the race has been for him, as Night's picks up 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. So I think he did come into the pits for a set of medium tyres, but I think they put him on a used set of medium tyres. He clearly ran out of medium tyres, and he's put him on 13 lap old medium, so he's had no choice but to come in again and put on the hard tyres. So a little bit of a disaster for him, but at least he has got time to catch back up. Looking further down the order, looks like O'Stevens on a brand new set of mediums, F1 Richard on a brand new set of mediums, Synchronousi in P12 on a brand new set of mediums. But this has really opened the door massively, hasn't it, for JSP's little bit of a second chance for him. He's got himself back up into P2, which he really showed pretty good pace. And Brennan's, I think Simon Palmer's damaged his front wing under safety car, hasn't he, there?
Yeah. Just pretty much sums up Simon Palmer's season. A lot of potential, a lot of talk about good pace, and in the race he just capitulates. So he's just lost his front wing again, but the safety car's still out, so he's got a chance to pit and change it again. But yeah, Luke Bailey now is going to have a clear shot at getting past JSP and Brennan's in front. He's on slightly older tyres, but they should be quicker than the hards for a short while. So if he wants to get that lead back, he's going to have to do it pretty soon.
Simon Palmer does stay out, so he clearly thinks that even a pit stop on a safety car is not worth losing the track position to the Williams of Stephen and the likes of F1 Richard and Synchronicity. So he's going to hold down P9 for now. Sab up into P7 from, I think it started P12. So, and is Malc there has got a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits under safety car. I couldn't be for the life of me explain what corner he could have potentially, even possibly, have cut to gain 10 seconds worth under a safety car. I'm sure that would be removed after a steward's inquiry after the race, but I'm sure Malc's going to get his head down and pretend that never happened, as we're still currently under safety car, just about coming up to the halfway point. But it's Brennans who leads us from JSP, the Mercedes driver. These two were flying in qualifying, but they've switched around in the race, as Brennans is going to lead us when we do eventually get green flags. Luke Bailey got stuck behind the fantastic battle between Gareth in the Williams, the two rebels of Malc and Nitrogas and Craig, and eventually lost his net race lead in that. The safety car timing didn't help him out either, as we have Gareth and Malc on the brand new set of hard tyres in 4th and 5th. Tinnis with staying out on the hard tyres. He's done 11 laps on those, should still be able to go to the end. He's got himself back up into P6. Sab on a brand new set of hard tyres into P7. Got Wojtek, who I'm not quite sure if he's rejoined or not. I don't believe he has, in P8. Simon Palmer with the damaged wing in P9. Stephen has got himself into the points as it stands. F1 Richard, of course, and Synchronicity, both of these victims of a JSP mistake on the opening laps, are down in 11th and 12th, but at least they've caught back up with fresh mediums, and Nitrogas is just about to catch up to the rest of this train in P13.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Simon that he's broken his wing, because he's obviously got the pace on some of the guys in front. Sab will be pretty happy with where he's at, up in P7, just pitted, and he's on 10 lap fresher tyres than the car in front, so he could potentially have a crack at getting past the Haas of Tinners. So he'll be pretty happy, and obviously Gareth and Malc only lost the one position from pitting as well, so they'll be happy with where they are.
Absolutely. Of course, looks like Nitro Gas and Synchronicity are just coming through the tunnel now, so they're just about to catch up to the last car of F1 Richard. So you'd hope that we'd see green flag potentially on this lap. We certainly wouldn't be having any more than one. Let's see, I think Nitro Gas picks up 3 seconds for corner cut, and not sure what that's about, but I think just before Nitro Gas's penalty, I think we might have just got a message saying safety car in this lap, because Brennans has just completely backed off, and the safety car has indeed jumped the gun, and he's going to make a quick dart into the pit line. Brennan's having a nice slow try and back the pack up the best he can. Simon Palmer's making a move on Wojtek already. That's certainly not allowed. He's letting back through. It looks like Brennans is going to now eventually pull the trigger, and JSP is going to follow him through the last corner. Looks like they've had a quite a good restart, these two. Luke Bailey perhaps snapping a little bit, 1.2 seconds behind. He's got a little bit of a gap to make up. Gareth too, also a further second behind. Tinnis likely, as Brennan's getting so close to the outside wall, and turn one has just about got away with it as JSP follows him up the hill into Casino. And of course, Randa Synchronicity picks up another 3 second time penalty there, as they're now coming around the top of the hill, and of course going down into turn 5. Difficult braking zone, easy to lock up. These guys just about fighting it off well. Of course, down a hairpin. Brennan's had a nice restart. Looks like it's got his tyres nicely up to temperature. I think Simon Palmer repassing the Haas of Wojtek, who I think is still ghosted, so I think just connection problems for the Haas driver. And Simon Palmer looks like he's all over the back of Sab as well. Looks like just a little bit further behind is Stephen, also about to pass the Haas driver, so he move up into P9. But really nice restart from Brennans. He clearly got his hard tyres working for him early.
Yeah, it's crucial to get the heat in those, because they can be extremely slippery, so I bet he's glad that he did. And Simon Palmer's all over the back of Sab now, even with that broken front wing. He's really pushing him. And Sab, we know, is good with his racecraft, and he's not going to be an easy pass for Simon. So Simon tags the back of him. Simon needs to just watch out. He's too hot-headed again.
Well, he's minus both end plates, and I think he's going to come into the pit lane. A very slow entrance into the pits. He clearly had enough, and with about 18 laps to go, he's forced to make another pit stop. So, well, the good news for him, and thankfully for him, there's not too much pressure riding on this, because Synchronicity is down into P10, of course, with Craig out of the race, and his teammate in P3 will be more than enough for the constructors tonight. But he's had a little bit of a messy race against Iron. But it's clearly had some very good pace, and I'm sure I'll put on new set tyres and try to go back out and maybe try and set fastest lap or something. But Reynolds is looking very, very strong. A 1.4 second gap to JSP, who's coming under a little bit of pressure to Luke Bailey now. Of course, he's on those medium tyres, 10 lap holds. Of course, a lot of those laps were under safety cars, so I'm sure they'll be in pretty good condition and should just about go to the end for him. But JSP knows if he can hold his position and not pick up any time penalties, you know, it's further later on in the race, his hard tyres will be a little bit more effective for him, and the mediums of Luke Bailey will begin to wear. And Gareth just about sticking with these three as well, further second behind, and Malc now Gareth's got a full front wing. I think Malc's finding a little bit harder to keep with the Williams driver, but he's keeping just within about 9/10 of a second with him. But P5 for the Red Bull driver, has got a couple of penalties, not even, so it looks like Sab had an incident somewhere. It looks like it's gone tumbling down the order, and yeah, it looks like his minus a front wing end plate. I think he might have just had a problem coming out of turns 15 and 16 into Raskowski. He's gone from about P7 all the way down to P12 for poor Sab, so it's going to be a frustrating night for him. But he's still got a little bit of time to make up, but he's going to but just if I get my words out, it's got time to just about try and make it up if things go right for him. But that's a bit of a disaster for the Racing Point.
Yeah, I think a few drivers now will be hoping for a second safety car, because, yeah, as you said, Sab going a bit deep into Raskas and just ended up touching the wall and losing that end plate, so that's going to cost him massively now to the end. But if he can just keep it clean between now and the end, there's still obviously a chance of picking up points, because you never know what the guys in front are going to do.
Absolutely, of course, only 6/10 of a second behind Wojtek, who still goes, so that should be a clean position for him. Of course, penalties as well. I think he's only picked up the one time penalty so far, Sab, so it could well be on for a point or two yet. Is O'Stephen having a flying race into P7 on his medium tyres, so we should really have a real eye out for him. Actually, in fact, he hasn't had too much stream time, which is a real shame for him, because hasn't all been his own way this season. So, but we've definitely got a ride on board of him now. He's coming under a little bit of pressure of the McLaren of F1 Richard, who of course started much further up the grid, but it hasn't gone all his own way for him. Of course, getting caught up in that JSP incident, but he's going to try and make amends for it now. He's into P8 and he's all over the back of that Williams. But O'Stephen, from about 13th on the grid, he's up into P7, comfortably inside the points, and with Tinnis ahead of him on old hards, he could be on for another position here.
Yeah, he could be. Tinnis obviously struggling on his old hards, but he will be going to the end. You would assume, because you can stretch those tyres out around here, although he's been on them a long time. But yeah, O'Stephen's really going to give it a good crack at this and try and get past the Haas car and get a couple of extra points for the Williams team.
Absolutely, it's just coming around turn 9 down the tunnel, of course, and Mark picks up 3 seconds. Of course, the only good thing for him is Tinnis is doing a very good job of keeping these 3 cars behind him, and obviously a little bit off the pace with those harder mediums. I don't think he has any wing damage. I think just struggling with tyre wear, so he will sort of minimise the damage of those time penalties just a little bit for the Red Bull driver, but he's got to try and keep it clean between now and the end of the race if he wants to try and bring home this good result. As Luke Bailey still hovering around between 0.8 of a second to a second behind JSP, and JSP just staying between about 1.5 to 2 seconds of the McLaren driver, so it's still pretty close, but Bernard's looking very comfortable. And Luke Bailey, for all his pace on the medium tyres, doesn't quite have the freshness in his tyres, perhaps try and make a move on the Mercedes driver. We'll see what O'Stephen could do at the top of the hill. He's just following that Haas driver a little bit. Still 7 seconds further back is the Haas to the Red Bull of Malc, and it's like the battle between 4th and 5th just stagnated a little bit. Gareth now 1.5 seconds behind Luke Bailey, and Malc a further 1.2 behind the Williams driver, but I'm sure these guys will be squabbling like hell in the final laps for this 6th place. But it is so Steve gets, I think, almost ramming up the barrier. I think he might have just got away with it without wing damage, but riding a fine line. And but it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? Because we've got F1 Richard and Synchronicity here. We know I've got very good pace from qualifying, and of course obviously getting held up in an unfortunate incident, but of course when it's so hard to overtake, and of course particularly when O'Stephen ahead of him has got DRS, it looks like it's going to be a bit frustrating, and they're going to have to try and be patient towards the end of the race.
Yeah, patience is going to be key, because you don't want to over push and just pick up silly wing damage like we've seen other drivers do. And just to mention Gareth's out there on those hard tyres that he changed onto under the safety car, and out there behind Luke, and he's sticking to the back of Luke really. It's fluctuating between 1 and 1.5 seconds as we go throughout the lap, so he's still in with a good chance of a podium if he can keep his race clean and possibly have a go at Luke at the end.
Yeah, as Tennis comes into the pit there, so he's not going to the end. He clearly felt he had either just not enough tyre wear, tyre life in his tyres to go to the end. Of course, just over 14 laps to go now, and clearly just, even though he's sat in a good position, he picked up a 3-second time penalty there, so you would expect him to lose a couple of positions because of it, but not feeling like he felt that going to the end was his best option there. So he's now left O. Stephen to fend for himself in P6, and F1 Richard all over the back of that McLaren driver, all making his life a little bit easier if he is getting a move done. Now that Williams doesn't have DRS going down that home straight, so Stephen goes a little bit deep in the Nouvelle chicane, try and get the power down quite nicely though, as Gareth picks up 3 seconds. Of course, the good news for him is Malc behind him has about half a minute's worth of penalties right now, so it shouldn't cost him really anything. We'll see what O. Stephen can do if he can try and catch up to the back of Malc, but maybe just a sloppy couple of laps here for Gareth, because I've noticed he's now suddenly dropped to about 3.3 seconds behind Luke Bailey, and now Malc is all over the back of the Williams driver. To see if he's potentially had an incident with the wall. Just about 13 laps to go. Is he missing a front wing end plate at all? So we'll try and see if we get a different camera shot. Yeah,
he is. He's missing the front left end plate, so he's obviously scraped the wall somewhere, unfortunately for him, and that is why he's dropping back. So obviously I've managed to curse him, but he's looking like he's bottled this one, so he won't be getting a podium at this rate.
No, it's going to be much like the first stint now. Of course, a new inspired helmet for this last round, and of course the last race on F1 2019 for us here at Invictus. But of course we have got the Nations Cup coming up fairly soon, so of course if you can't wait for more action, you haven't got long to wait. That of course starts Monday, Tuesday, and of course the final is here live on YouTube on Wednesday night, so you've got all that to look forward to. Still plenty of racing to come for here on Invictus on F1 2019 before we move on to the new game in just a matter of weeks. As F1 Richard is looking so confident, so quick. It's such a shame he couldn't be further up the field, because he's looking really confident. At least his teammate is doing a really nice job in the lead. 1.9 seconds now to the back of that Mercedes of JSP. In fact, he now even runs up to 2 seconds, but what can F1 Richard do? Just hasn't quite got the traction coming out the last corner. You can just see the DRS and the slipstream round. It just isn't really effective enough to get a move done into turn 1 as you come up the hill. And into Massenet, of course, no real chance for the McLaren driver. You're just going to have to rely on a mistake for the Williams driver's Nitrogas does now come into the pit. So I'm not sure, he must have had an incident somewhere, perhaps a new change of front wing. He is changing a front wing. Yeah,
he just had no front wing completely, so not entirely sure what happened to him, and he also served a penalty in the pit, so he's going to be miles down at the back. Simon Palmer's out there going around steadily. He's catching up with Wojtek's Ghost, but and then you have Sab close in front of that, but other than that is Sab's got 15 seconds to the car up the road, so Simon's going to have to dispatch a Sab and then really get the hammer down if he wants to move up positions.
Yeah, it'd be interesting how it goes. I think Sab hasn't got...
Sab's just hit the wall. Sab's just hit the wall on the exit of the corner that brings you out into the tunnel, and Simon's just been gifted the position there, so unfortunately for Sab it's looking like he's going to need to stop again, because he's lost all of the left side of his front wing. He's just got the bottom plate, and that's going to hamper him massively, so Sab really looking like he's struggling out there at the moment. He's lost the rest of his front wing.
So there through swimming pool, bumping off the wall. He's going to have to just try and bring it home. These last couple of corners, the pit lane is only a corner away. If he could just try and hold on a little bit. He's got Tinnis and the Ghost of Wojtek just behind him. He comes in safely into the pit lane. Sadly for him, it looks like it's going to be no points in Monte Carlo for him this evening. But of course, only his third race on the wheel, and of course not too much in terms of expectations. He doesn't particularly like this circuit in terms of free tracks to move into a new tier, and of course onto a new platform on the wheel. To have Singapore, Silverstone and Monaco, particularly Singapore and Monaco, not particularly two kind tracks to do. Of course, they had a really good result in Singapore, getting a couple of points to his name in P8. He hasn't quite gone away for him since, but of course, a new game, a fresh start, and I'm sure plenty of practice. He'll be back up fighting for the points as we have Synchronously just a second behind the McLaren of F1 Richard, who I believe has kept it pretty clean in terms of penalty. So it would be interesting to see if he can go up couple of positions yet. As Malc still all over the back of Gareth for P4. Even if he could get the job done, he would drop back through penalties. I think Gareth has only picked up maybe 1 3-second time penalty, so he's looking pretty clean in that area at least. Stevens about 9 seconds behind Malc. I think he would get Malc on penalties anyway, because of course Malc did pick up a 10-second corner cutting penalty under safety car. I'm sure that will be looked at the stewards if it was any little bit of a technical fault there on the game's behalf, as F1 Richard now looks like he's just drops off the back of Stephen after looking so racy behind him. I wonder if he's just got a little bit impatient with a move. I'm just seeing a little bit of his left-hand end plate there from the on board of the Renault driver, looking like maybe he's just missing an end plate on that left-hand side of his front wing. Indeed he is, as we come around the hairpin. So suddenly it's all turned for F1 Richard, who's got another yellow flag somewhere in that last sector. I think that's Sab, who has now retired, but I think he's just lost it somewhere, the exit of swimming pool, who's now sadly retired. So it's a virtual safety car.
VSC, yeah, VSC. So unfortunately for those guys that are somewhat down the order, they're not going to be able to close back up to the back of the cars in front, but it is what it is, and it's looking like it's still a three-way fight out front for the win at the moment. Yeah,
and it's looking like Luke Bailey, of course, it's probably the phase of the race where his mediums are just going to try and phase away from him just that little bit more, and so I'm sure we'll see JSP again, just that little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident, just try and keep it clean for these top 2 guys in particular, top 3 in terms of penalties, and they should be looking pretty good for a podium on the most glamorous podiums of Monte Carlo as F1 Richard comes into the pit. So he's clearly seen this virtual safety car as a chance to mend that front wing, so he's gone onto the soft tyres, but slow stop is going to mean he's going to come under pressure here, being jumped by Simon Palmer, who's also is on the medium tyres of 15 laps, so it would still keep him in the points, F1 Richard, and a good shot of fastest lap, but he is going to come up behind the Alfa Romeo, so he's going to dip down into P9, going to be nip and tuck with Tinnis in the Haas, but I think he might just about do it. He's right on board with Tinnis as the McLaren driver does indeed come out just about ahead of him.
Yeah, so Richard's going to have to get his foot down. He's got a 5-second gap to Simon, which should be pretty easy to close on these brand new set of soft tyres, so I'm sure we'll see him close up to the back of the Alfa pretty sharpish, but it'll be another thing trying to get past him.
Absolutely, and of course Simon Palmer 18 seconds behind Synchronously. I think he's got quite a few penalties as well, so if he could just try and get just anywhere near around the gearbox of that Alfa Romeo, maybe call his engineer Jeff. There's a little bit of info to see if he does need to risk an overtake on the Alfa Romeo driver, or is he good? But we can just see how much he's pulled on the Haas driver already, just 5-lap newer tyres. He's looking really confident. Oh no, it's brand new softs, as indeed it would be, all the grip in the world. Of course, low fuel on this stage of the race as we come through to back, and the McLaren driver's absolutely shot off like a bullet. Already pulled about a second on Simon Palmer, just under 3.9 now. It was just over 5 seconds ago, not a minute ago. So he's absolutely flying. As I think Simon Palmer might have been out an incident somewhere, because it's now got to 2.7. And as we shoot to another camera angle, I'd be expecting to see him minus a front wing end plate, and indeed he is. I think on that left-hand side, he is missing a front wing end plate. It's not probably a red front wing, but it might be a yellow or orange, and that'll make F1 Richard's life a lot easier.
Yeah, it's looking like we're going to have a little battle here, because everyone else is pretty much doing their own thing at the moment, so we might get a bit of action here once Richard closes up to the Alfa, which could even be in just a few corners time, where the Alfa obviously struggling for downforce.
Yeah, and I think with 8 laps to go in the final race of the season around Monaco with a damaged front wing, I'd bet my bottom dollar that Simon Palmer's going to give it all he possibly can to hold up F1 Richard and Tinnis, both on brand new set of soft tyres. So you definitely say this odds are stacked against Simon Palmer, but we'll see how he does. We ride on board with F1 Richard, see how much Simon Palmer's struggling to slow it down for the Nouvelle chicane at turns 10 and 11. Coming around to back, F1 Richard will be able to just sling the steer more to the left, and the car just grip Simon Palmer even out of the swimming pool, becoming a little bit of a treacherous corner for him. Coming around turn 15 to 16 is F1 Richard clipping the wall, and he's now minus a front wing end plate on that front right side. So we're now going to see a head off 1v1 for about 7 laps. They're both minus a front wing end plate. Obviously F1 Richard much better tyres, but that's had a little bit of a boost, you'd say, probably to Simon Palmer's. Coming around turn 1 now, coming up the hill through Rivage and of course up into Massenet So these guys got to be careful with their front wings, because it's so easy to do. It's such a tight circuit. Of course, when you're behind someone with the dirty air, trying to get a move done, try and get in their mirrors, try and put them off somehow. But seems like we're going through quite a lot of front wings tonight.
Yeah, it's getting a bit ridiculous now. I mean, you shouldn't really be losing your front wing on brand new softs out there. But anyways, it is difficult to follow someone, and he's obviously lost it. So he still should have the tyre advantage to get past, obviously with the car in front having the same aerodynamic problems as him, but it will make it certainly a lot harder to get past.
As we now come down into Nouvelle Chicane, the Simon Palmer just getting such a poor exit, really struggling with traction, and it absolutely swipes to the left to defend that inside line into the back, not letting the McLaren driver going anywhere near that inside line. He wants to get to that apex first, defending for all his might, so he really is defending this 8th place for all his life. And Luke Bailey equally just putting a little bit of pressure on JSP now. It's about half a second behind, so despite his tyres being a little bit worn, he's keeping well in tabs with the Mercedes driver. Perhaps maybe just putting him under pressure, perhaps just hoping he could force him into an error, force him into picking up a penalty even, as now just coming around Messonnier into the right hand side into turns 4 up Casino, and then down the hill into turn 5. Of course, F1 Richard, sometimes goes a little bit deep, and of course now into the hairpin. F1 Richard just trying to have a little sniff into the inside, just bumping Simon Palmer around the hairpin. Of course, not too many laps to go now. If he wanted to get this moved on the track, I'm sure he would have called his engineer at this point, see how many time penalties Simon Palmer does do. Maybe doesn't care, maybe he knows he's going to get a position, but thinks because it's the last race of the season, I'm going to go for it and get this move done on track. He's certainly going to try and give us a bit of entertainment. It's not going to go for the move into the Nouvelle Chicane just this time. Does he get a better exit? Again, notice how Simon Palmer's going to get good enough traction to hold his position comfortably into back. We're going right on board with Luke Bailey, see how he's doing in his battle for 2nd place. And JSP 2.6 seconds behind now, so just struggling a little bit. Brennon's looking like he's absolutely checked out in the lead after just missing out on pole position in qualifying after a fantastic battle between these two. Looks like it's the McLaren driver. Touchwood don't want to jinx him around here, but looks like he's coming up trumps so far. Looks like it's a little bit of a sloppy lap here for Luke Bailey. He's just dropped back a little bit, as looks like F1 Richard now pushing Simon Palmer up the hill into Massonnet.
Yeah, he really is pushing that Alfa Romeo around the circuit. It just hasn't got the turning to get any good purchase into a corner and get a good exit. So yeah, that front wing damage obviously hampering Richard. But Simon obviously struggling with rear traction as well on those worn mediums. But yeah, and Brennon's has just been perfect tonight. He's not made any mistakes. He's played the strategy absolutely perfectly. He gambled on, obviously, on a safety car coming out. It paid off. He's not put a foot wrong, and his pace has been really consistent. So I don't want to jinx him, but it's looking like the perfect drive from Brennon's tonight.
Certainly, he's looked very, very handy tonight in the rain and in the dry, and so synchronously also all over the back of Stephen. So just have a little ride on board to see how he's doing. Looks like they're on pretty evenly matched tyres. In fact, they're both on 18 lap old medium, so they're on pretty matched in terms of tyre life. And synchronously, to be fair to him, he's done a good recovery drive after the incident, of course, on the opening laps of JSP. I think it was even lap 2. So to get himself back up into 7th, and even more positions up for grabs. He's only about 6-7 seconds behind Malc in P5, who has also dropped off the back of Gareth, so you expect him to potentially have picked up front wing damage from somewhere. And once again, looks like F1 which is almost pushing the Alfa Romeo Simon Palmer around Massonnet, and they're going to come back down the hill into turn 5. Of course, they'd just be trying to line up a move at this point for the exit out of Portier through the tunnel. We'll maybe try a little slingshot, as F1 Richard gets a 3-second time penalty there for just riding the curb a little bit too more on the inside of that hairpin. Of course, you want to ride it a little bit because it just helps the car get it rotated a little bit better, get on the power just that little bit earlier. But doing it a little bit too much, so he's only 0.2 seconds behind. Is he going to try and be brave on the inside? He's going to have a little look. Simon Palmer probably glued into his mirrors. What sort of exit can he get? He's going to look to the inside. Once again, Simon Palmer snaps to the left to shut the door. They're both going to run into the wall. Simon Palmer has lost more of his front wing. I think F1 Richard might have lost his front wing end plate on that right, and I think he was already missing the front right hand side end plate. So I think he might have got away with it without further damage. But Simon Palmer's certainly going to be minus even more downforce. He's missing both end plates on the right and left hand side. So that Alfa Romeo on 21 lap old medium is going to be handling like an absolute boat for these last 4 laps. But maybe for P8 and P9, they had quite a lot of penalties between them, Charlie. But this is going to be quite an interesting battle, I'd hope.
Yeah, I hope it gets a bit more interesting, as it looks like it's about to, as Richard Horn thought about going to the outside, because Simon is now so slow, especially through the faster corners on this very slow corner dominated circuit. Simon's really going to be struggling, and it's looking like he is. Richard's going to be all over the back of him, but it would just be nice to see Richard go for a move rather than sit behind him, which is, I'm sure, what we all want to see.
Just over 2.5 laps gone, a little bit of a wider line through Portier there for Simon Palmer. This is very close to what he's been. Hasn't got any battery, any fuel left. He's so close. He's going to just dip out the foot a little bit. He's going to squeeze it to the inside, and they both go into the wall. There's just not quite 100% committed move there from the McLaren driver. Came super close. You can see how much more grip he's got, and it's now minus a lot of front wing on that right hand side and on the left, I believe. So it's going to have to probably, well, you think at this point, is it worth changing? But it's going to have no chance, sadly, getting past the Alfa Romeo driver. Now, you can hear him just lift his foot off the throttle a little bit just as they headed into the braking zone, as it does come into the pit, so he's clearly wanting a change of front wing. You can just hear him lift off the throttle a little bit to try and sweep the car to the left-hand side. Someone all that Synchronousity's crashed as well, who seems to be coasting in about P7. I think he's lost it in P15 and 16 somewhere, gone into the wall. Not too sure what that's about. Because that would mean that, well, Wojtek's ghosted, so that would mean the last point would be handed to Tinnis. Because here it was just lifting off the throttle to try and get the car down the inside, but it just looked like it was a gap that was always going to be closed.
Unfortunately, Richard is really the one that was at fault there. He sort of half went for a move. He didn't commit to it, and when you don't commit to a move, that's always what's going to happen. We've all done it ourselves, and yeah, you just have to, once you go, you've got to stick with it, otherwise you're just going to cause a collision, which unfortunately Richard did there, but he paid the price for it and he's now back out of the points, so it's unfortunate, but these things happen when you're racing and trying your best.
It's almost like that rule number one, isn't it, of a 50-50 tackle in football. If you're going for a 50-50, don't back out of it, because otherwise you'll be the one getting hurt. If you're going for a 50-50 move, don't be shy, don't back out of it, because it will be you again getting hurt. And just sort of in two minds going into the braking of the New Hampshire chicane, and just Simon Palmer, of course, having to shut the door, taking his line as you expect him to do, and of course does mean he finishes will finish P7. We got
yeah. Tinner's just driving around in P10, just bouncing off walls now. He's pretty much given up as he's just driving across chicanes, and yeah, he's probably just gonna he's just actually going to pull into the pits. Is he going to retire with 1 lap to go?
Surely not. The last he has retired on the last lap of the season. It's a shame, as Brennan's is now starting his last lap. A fantastic drive from him, at least. And of course, he's got 1 last lap to negotiate before he can claim a very nice victory. I think he's a lap ahead now. Has now lapped his teammate, but his teammate, for all his disasters that has happened for him, sadly for him tonight, he's going to still pick up a point at least. And Wojtek, of course, who's ghosted, he won't be classified, as he's had connection problems throughout. Nitrogas did a really good job for a lot of tonight. Didn't quite go his way. It's had a bit of a shocking second half of the race for him. Looks like we've got a battle. What's going on here between Simon Palmer and Nitrogas? Looks like they've had a bit of a switcheroo later on this lap. Stevens had a very solid race as usual, coming back from the back and now heavily inside the points, and as many penalties as he could possibly want, he will hold on to that 6th place. Malc might possibly lose his P5, but he's going to get P6 at the absolute worst. So a fantastic result from Malc on the streets of Monte Carlo, but he'll go on right on board with our race leaders. He's about to come through the last sequence of corners. He's got his teammate right behind him, but it's not going to be a McLaren 1-2, but it will be McLaren's double point scoring finish. Brennan's then, a little star in qualifying, was just pipped to pole position, but he's going to cross the line, and he's the first man to cross the line, and he's going to win the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. Fantastic drive from him, a massive well done. JSP, great recovery. 1 mistake on lap 2 cost him, but a fantastic job to finish P2. Luke Bailey finishes a fantastic season out in P3. Captain Stiff, Gareth comes home in P4. Malcolm's going to cross the line in P5. He's going to have a lot of penalties. He's had a fantastic race though. We'll see, he might even get one of them removed. We'll see Stephen if it does cross the line, and it does take P5. So P4 and P5 for Williams on the streets of Monaco. Nitrogas is going to follow a long way behind his teammate, but he might well finish his teammate behind, depending on how many penalties he has. I know Simon Palmer certainly got a few. Simon Palmer really struggling with his front wing. and still absolutely giving it everything around the final corner, final two corners of Raskas, and now coming around the last turn, as it looks like Nitrogas is going to be the one to take home P7 as Sam Palmer crosses the line for P8, and of course F1 Richard a lap down in P10. And a crazy Monte Carlo Grand Prix, but a fantastic drive. I think the top three really were on another level. Fantastic drives from Gareth and Malc as well. Didn't quite at the same pace of these three, but it's a Brit 1-2-3, Charlie, and I think was Brennan's best of the rest?
Brennan's was best of anybody. A great race from him, just like I said earlier, didn't put a foot wrong and kept his head when everyone else really was busy making mistakes and having unfortunate strategy calls. So yeah, a great race from Brennan's. A good recovery from JSP from that early spin, because he clearly had the pace as well to challenge, and a nice race from Luke Bailey starting in third and keeping his position. So once again, good consistency from Luke up there, finishing on the podium yet again.
Yeah, it's just a shame for Luke, isn't it? How much different it would be if he could just get this championship going on for just one more round. But there's your classification then. Brennan's a fantastic win for him from second on the grid. He beats JSP to the line, 3.2 seconds. He didn't put a foot wrong all race. JSP comes home P2. Luke Bailey rounds out the podium with a fantastic drive. The man's come second in the championship, put a real good account of himself this season. Captain Stiff P4, O'Stephen P5, Malc P6, Nitro P7, Simon Palmer P8, and of course Wojtek won't be classified, as F1 Richard will be the last classified car in P9. And just looking back here, Brennan's only picked up one podium this season. We know how quick he's been. We know we saw in the rain of Germany, in fact, the way he picked up his podium, we know how good he was in the rain, and he showed it, how good he was in the rain in qualifying, as too did JSP. And we know how qualifying can be so influential around here, and those two put the absolute most of it and did a really good result, and a really nice way to round out the 2019 game for these two. And of course Luke Bailey as well, picking up another podium, and I'm sure he'll be very pleased to end it out. And of course to win in Monte Carlo is probably the best way to round out a league season. Of course it's been an up and down season for Brennan's, but we know how strong he is in the race, Charlie, and of course one Achilles heel has been qualifying. It hasn't been the best of luck for him. He hasn't scored a point in the last 3 races even, but suddenly to take the win, and I think the big key there was qualifying.
Yeah, I think as you said, we've seen he's had pace here and there. He just hasn't been too consistent with it. Although his race pace has been fairly good as well. He just hasn't been able to string it all together and put in a performance. But he's managed to do it tonight, and it's come off really well. So yeah, a great race from Brennan's and completely deserved the win.
Absolutely, and of course we just wait for the top 3 to try and join us in for the last interviews of the season. And of course that does wrap up the league season for us on F1 2019. As we were saying earlier, we do have the Nations Cup coming up very soon, just next week. Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday will be the final, so 2 semi-finals on Monday and Tuesday. They'll be streamed live on YouTube for you, and of course the final on Wednesday. And of course if you want all the news, if you want to know where to sign up for next season, of course you can hit us up on all the socials, Instagram at Invictus Racing League, Twitter at Invictus RL. You can find us on Facebook, and of course our website is where you can apply for next season to get yourself on the grid. We've got a 4th division coming to PS4, we've got a 2nd division coming to Xbox, and we could well even be getting a PC grids lined up for next season as well on the new game of F1 2020. And of course if you haven't already, remember to subscribe and give it a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed. And I think our top 3 have just about all joined us, and of course I'll start with our race winner Brennan's. Congratulations, you've had a real up and down season. You've shown some blistering pace at some races and it's then not gone well. You've only picked up 1 podium before tonight. All of a sudden you're rounding up the season in Monte Carlo with a win. That must be a complete mystery to you.
I'm absolutely chuffed. When I saw the calendar come out and saw Monaco at the end, I knew I just wanted to win this one. So I'm really chuffed for this. Yeah, I've had some ups and downs. Good start to the season, but some bad luck in the second half. And yeah, I'm absolutely chuffed for this first win. Can I just dedicate this to Clarkie's first daughter, who's due, I think, in October, and he told me if I won it that he'd call his daughter Monica. So that's fantastic news.
Wow, that's great. That's a Well, you've fulfilled a real promise there. I'm sure you'll be very pleased with that. We go back to qualifying, because it was really interesting qualifying to watch. We know how interesting Monte Carlo qualifyings usually are anyway, but of course with the added dilemma of the rain. And it seemed like you and JSP in particular, sort of in a league of your own, you two were sort of trading times pole for pole. when I think you set a lap time that was about 4 tenths of a second quicker, about just under 2 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you saw JSP go just pip you on the line?
I'd set mine, got in the pits, went to the toilet, and saw as soon as I got back that I was down in second. I couldn't believe it, and it hit me by so much. He just destroyed my time. So yeah, and then I hadn't thought about a start like this, to start in the dry, and whether to start on the softs or medium. So I was just trying to have a quick think of what was best to do, and obviously medium's just the way to go.
Yeah, it certainly worked out really nicely. We'll come back to you in just a minute as we'll move on to our second place man, JSP. Congratulations, you also joined us halfway through the season. It's been very up and down. You've already picked up a win in Singapore. You didn't finish last week. Suddenly you're back on the podium in P2. It looked like all your hard work in qualifying been sort of out the window. I think it was on lap 2 you had that little mistake. But talk to us from your point of view. Are you very surprised to be back on the podium after lap 2?
A little bit, yeah. Lap 2, I was thinking that was it. It was probably done, but then luckily there was quite a gap behind, so I was able to rejoin, and I didn't have any damage. But congratulations to Brennan's. Obviously, it was back and forwards in qualifying, but he drove a flawless race, really. And at the restart, I thought, okay, I'll let him go a little bit and then see if I can pull him back in at the end. But he was just a bit too quick. And yeah, congratulations, obviously, to Luke and Simon for the constructors. But yeah, Monaco's just one of those, isn't it? We were lucky we got the free pit stop really under the safety car, which didn't help Luke, and then yeah, it was just a case of keeping it clean to the end.
Yeah, you definitely kept your cool as Luke Bailey kept you under a lot of pressure, certainly pretty much all the way to the end, but you held him off well. So to go back, I'll also talk to Brennan's about it quickly as well. In terms of qualifying, when you see Brennan's go 4 tenths of a second faster, then you've got 1 lap to do it, and looked in your middle sector, you was about nip and tuck with the McLaren. But what was that last sector? Because I mean, you found about 4 tenths in like one sector, it looked like.
Yeah, the couple of laps before, I didn't quite have everything turned up, because I was going for a few laps at a time. So on the last one, I just thought I'd send it and see what happened, and yeah, it all worked out. So I was pleased with that one.
Well, massive congratulations. You've also made a real impact as you joined a first place in Singapore, and of course a podium tonight. So congratulations to you. I'll move on to Luke. Luke, I'm sure you're a little bit disappointed that if you, of course, with Craig getting disqualified tonight, not finishing, that the drivers couldn't go on for another week. But in terms of the season, you've got the constructors' crown to your name now, and you've had clearly a really good season, finishing a strong second. Third tonight, you must be overall really, really pleased.
Yeah, definitely. Up and down season, to be fair. I think one word to use is unlucky. But yeah, as soon as I saw Craig had been disqualified, I just sat in third and just played it safe. Safety car didn't help me in this race, but as soon as I saw that, I thought it's just not worth pushing for second or first. So just settled for third, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's your 7th podium at 12 races, so it's showing how consistent you've been. You say you've been unlucky. There's certainly like results of sort of Spain and Singapore, particularly suddenly spring to mind. But what can we expect from you for next season, of course? Is it going to be ultimate eyes fixated on the Drivers' Championship again?
Yeah, I think first one is just better consistency and hopefully not as much bad luck. With the car, 2 DRS failures and a couple of mistakes here and there, so hopefully just a little bit more consistency, and hopefully that should be all the difference.
And of course, before you start off with the different strategy, we saw Brennan's and JSP starting on the medium side. You opted on the softs. It looked like it worked sort of pretty well for you. After JSP's mistake, you also inherited the lead. What was your reaction when you came out the pits right behind that battle of the 2 Red Bulls and Craig? You must have been.
It wasn't the end of the world just then, but then when I saw the safety car come up, I knew that were definitely lost first and second, and any others. So I just thought wherever I come out, I'm stopping it as high as it was. So yeah, safety car didn't help.
No, certainly not. And but no, massive congratulations to you. You've done a real good season. You've given us so much entertainment, really taken the fight to Craig, and massive well done to Craig as well, of course, wrapping up the championship last week. And one last question, of course, back to Brennan's. little bit inconsistent here and there for you, but qualifying has perhaps been the one Achilles heel for you. You've always seemed to have better race pace than your qualifying results have perhaps shown, and that's one thing got right tonight. Next season, what's the targets for you? Is it try and be a little bit more consistent with your qualifying to make the most of it, or are you going to be all out trying to maybe look to get on the top step a few more times?
Yeah, I think I've got to look at the qualifying, but I might also remove an assist, so I might go that way and sacrifice the times. I'll have to think about it over the break and see what to do.
Absolutely, well, good stuff, and massive congratulations to all three of you. You've done a real good race, and of course they're sort of a league above the rest in the top three, and really nice race as well from the likes of Gareth, Stephen and Malc coming home P4 and P5 and P6 respectively. But in terms of these three, Charlie, they did a real strong race, and none of them really put a foot wrong, other than maybe a little bit of an incident on lap 2 of JSP.
Yeah, he didn't put a foot wrong, Brennan's tonight, and JSP, unfortunately, that spin cost him. But I'm sure he's happy knowing that he did have the pace to challenge. So, and Luke obviously picking up another podium. So it's good driving from all three of them. It'd be good to see next season which one of the three and the rest of the drivers will come out on top.
Absolutely, of course, that does run us out of F3 and of course out of F1 2019 in terms of league. Of course, we have the Nations Cup coming up next week, and a massive thank you to all the drivers for making it super entertaining. It's had some real good races to watch over the 12 rounds, and thank you so much for tuning in over the 12 rounds. Hope to see you again very soon. Thank you to Charlie, of course, for being alongside me for all 12 rounds. Of course, the first time we've been commentating together, and of course we look forward to hopefully commentating over future seasons here at Invictus. And of course we hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you can't wait for the new season, can't wait for the Nations Cup, and give it a big old thumbs up if you enjoyed the race. And we hope you have a very good evening and see you again very soon. Good night.
Cheers guys, see ya.